Hey y'all, welcome to Viva Agile. This is Lena speaking, and today I wanted to make a quick video to introduce you to a very simple and basic weekly status report template. This is a template that we use for our Viva Agile clients and have been using actually for a few years. We vary it based on the size of the client or the size of the engagement, but for today I thought we would start with the basic one. This is really going to be 5 slides, literally 5 slides. Though it's small, we often find simple works best to communicate issues, risks, and to inspire fast decision making across our programs and projects. We use this mainly for larger institutional or enterprise clients, and the audience size ranges, from as readership goes, for 25 to 100 people, typically attending a weekly status meeting that will then be followed up with us emailing out this template or putting it into Slack or putting it into Teams or even uploading it into SharePoint. This could work well for non-institutional clients as well. So if you have a 20-person startup or a smaller firm just focused on just general readouts and report outs, then this could also work for that. A couple of points before we actually go into the slides. I just thought it'd be, hopefully helpful to call out. This report right now that I'm walking you through is going to be done in PowerPoint, but it can be recreated in Excel, in Word, in Confluence, or even SharePoint if you like. Our philosophy is to keep the updates succinct and to use full sentences. Many people use emojis and informal language in reporting these days, and I think that works perfectly well, but our clients tend to veer more towards formal communication. But certainly you can kind of rework this for yourself if you have a little bit less formality internally. Next up, we tend to use this mainly for, I would say, scrum-based engagements, waterfall, and these days we're doing a lot of SAFe engagements. So SAFe stands for Scale Agile Framework. And we're doing quite a bit of essential SAFe or full SAFe. And this is one of the weekly readouts we send across to the entire release train. If you haven't worked with SAFe and some of this particular terminology around Scale Agile is new to you, then I'm going to link below a couple of links from the SAFe website that hopefully could be beneficial. We also tend to label this status report as a weekly readout or report out. We are really management consultants or just independent consultants at times. So we use a lot of buzzwords. So you don't have to call it readouts or report outs. You can just call it a standard weekly status report. Just know that you're going to hear me saying when I do these videos, readouts and report outs as we talk about reporting. And I use a lot of buzzwords because it's my day-to-day. So just take them as that, literally buzzwords. All right, let's dive in. We're going to go first into slide number 1. Pretty standard, right? Really, title slide covers the weekly status. If you're working with an institution, this could be something like energy. Very commonly it could be like the technology groups internally, IT, could be operations. This is effectively the verticals that you're working with. Could be horizontal groups, can be any of these things. The program name, it's pretty standard name of your official program. We're using a lot of API programs these days. So this would be, as an example, a pricing API language. Weekly status, call it a report, call it readout. What specific works for you? Standard dates, current date. And I should say that we tend to run weekly meetings. We're a big fan of weekly meetings to kind of communicate out issues and risks. If we can't do it, especially in times of COVID, in person, then we tend to do it live via Zoom, via Teams. And in some cases, if people are really not attending and we're getting very low attendance, we'll record a video and kind of email that out with the readout. So pretty standard. This is your title page. This is what you'll go to kind of really customize on a week-by-week basis. Next, we're going to move into the executive summary page, which is basically a summary of everything that's happened in the previous week or the previous 2 weeks. If you're running bi-weekly status reports or bi-weekly weekly meetings, then that would cover the 2 weeks prior. If you're doing weekly, as in many of our engagements, then this date would be as such. Primary contact, in this case, it can really be the project manager, the program manager is often what we see. We tend to work a lot with Scrum Masters and a program lead, so effectively a PGM. Their names would actually go here just from our purpose. Oftentimes, as I mentioned, we tend to do a lot of Scrum. A lot more videos to come from Viva Agile's channel on Scrum, but collectively, let's say you're doing the current sprint, and that's covering 1 week of the current sprint, and you would just highlight here which sprint as the phase that you're in. RAG status, red, amber, green. You really can kind of color code this to anything that you want. Just to kind of show you guys, I'm sure most people know, if you're in PowerPoint, you would really just change the standard color to a red, amber, and green as you need to. Same thing for the status size as we go into the table. Now, as you go into your programs, as many people who have been in project management for as long as myself, you often think in terms of work streams. And work streams can be design and execution, can be, of course, the overall program schedule, resources if you're hiring, or, God forbid, there are a lot of roll-offs or terminations. Then the resources section, a resourcing row is really important. Backlog, because again, we're very focused on having mature backlogs and having a really deep backlog of requirements. We always start with backlog definition and refinement. There are ongoing backlog refinement sessions that happen across our teams. The owner of these tend to be the product owner of this track. It could be a product manager as well if you so feel that that's needed in your track. In some cases, it could also be a business analyst. So I would put the person's name here, specific their roles. I would always highlight red, amber, green in terms of the status, and really just bullet point to bullet point of what progress is actually happening across your program. So completed 25 additional user stories across current and legacy APIs, as an example. If there are risks that need to be called out in this executive summary, we often kind of just tag them here for just quick read. But we do have a risk section as well that I'll get to. Technical design, execution, this is often owned by the architect or the tech lead in many cases. Again, red, amber, green, and it can be the collective work of what was completed. POC, MuleSoft, API built. Really succinct, easy to follow, can be dragged and dropped into an email if you need to. And again, red, amber, green. Program schedule, this is often done by the program managers or the Scrum Master, and this is really, are you on track based on your best estimate, even with an Agile program, of what you need to achieve full MVP, full go live, whether you're in a 1.0 stage. So this really follows like the old waterfall terminology and language of whether you're red, amber, green across the overall program if you're running that type of engagement. A lot of questions, I often get a lot of questions around red, amber, green and programs when you're running Scrum and really true Agile engagements. Do you really have the role of the program manager in there? And do you really have to keep a schedule and a roadmap? I'll do a specific video on that, but my short answer on that is that I think it's a good idea depending on the size of the team, and I often recommend that you try to communicate roadmaps and schedules even though there's flexibility with requirements because you are in Agile. And like I said, resources, people new joining or onboarding, developers onboarding, new business analysts, new product owners onboarding. This is where the update section would go. And if your program is dependent on key resources being hired, then we often use the red, amber, green coding for resources as well. All right, moving on to slide number 3. This looks much more aimed towards sprints and Scrum, the way that I've outlaid it here, but it can actively be used for non-Scrum based projects as well. So just to walk you through, this is a summary of our burn down for sprint 6. This is the story points that we planned at the beginning of the sprint. This is the story points that we completed, effectively a very low sprint. We tend to summarize the goals of a sprint from a product perspective, from a tech perspective. You can really just put like 3 goals, actually 3 bullet points. You could put 1 goal, but oftentimes we kind of showcase it here to our stakeholders. The burn down really speaks for itself. You know, if you haven't done burn downs before, there's some really good reading materials on how they work. You could use a burn down, you could use a burn up. If you're on Scrum as well, you could also use burn ups. But really just the total points completed. And I tend to screenshot some of these directly from our reporting tool. In this case, it's Azure DevOps. You could screenshot it from Jira should you need to. Then you have the API work by sprint and assignees by sprint. I've kind of blacked out or blued out their names, but really this is showing the number of records or number of enablers, tasks, stories assigned by team member. And this is really to give our clients transparency into who's working on what. Many of our engagements tend to be 20 plus people with 10 plus developers. So oftentimes clients love to have a sense of what you're paying for and what they're investing in. And they really want to make sure that team members, or resources in some cases, as they call them, are allocated to multiple tracks of work. And again, this is really something that I tend to dive into on a program basis if I need to from a client's perspective, but this is to provide transparency. All of this can be rewritten though. If you are not running Scrum-based engagements and you don't have metrics that look like these, no worries. What I'd recommend is that replacing it with a burn-up chart. If you're doing a burn-up chart in like Excel, a custom burn-up chart in Excel, you could even replace the sprint goals with OKRs or project KPIs, like a pretty standard project KPI is % done. That's very used heavily in waterfall projects. That could all go into the goals section or the weekly update section if you need to. But something that speaks to metrics, I think, is really important and critical in a weekly readout or weekly report out. I think it's really good to showcase that you're thinking qualitatively and quantitatively when you're running small and large engagements. But that's our opinion here at Viva Agile. If you feel differently, I would love to hear your thoughts. All right, next up, pretty standard array-based log. This is a status readout of the risks, actions, issues, decisions. Usually not as neat as this. Tends to be multiple risks, multiple actions, depending on the size of the engagement. We love to report again a status of it. It's like in progress, blocked, etc. Really to show that the risks are moving through the actual engagement. You're not stuck on one item for beyond a week, and if you are, then that should be highlighted as blocked, at least based on our workflow. We often tend to assign an owner to a risk or a decision. It could be a stakeholder, it could be a product owner, product manager, and of course it could be the tech lead or individual developer. We always try to aim for a resolution date depending on the type of issue or the type of risk. And even decisions, architectural decisions, program decisions, they get recorded. And this particular slide really just records, the recent activity of risks, actions, issues, and decisions for the time period that we're reporting on in the executive summary. So to be clear, we're actually recording any risk, issue, action, decision in the time period that's being shown here in the executive summary. If you've recorded something from 3 months ago, I would actually have that fall off this slide and really only show a current state of what your RAID log looks like. All right, next up, a little bit more busy and more complicated slide, but we often try to show what we call a mid-level plan. And a mid-level plan is a bit busier than like a high-level plan, but effectively it tries to show which sprint you're in. In many cases, it could be which iteration or which phase of the program or project you're in. It shows like the high-level items in terms of technical design, quality assurance. A week-by-week breakdown tends to be very important. In this case, disengagement is showing 14-week prospective and retrospective work. And then you show mini milestones. So very common for those of us who have done waterfall for a number of years. We try to show like plans. Like stakeholders tend to like this view, at least from our work and our clients. But oftentimes our teams, our developers, our program owners, our BAs, they tend to really resent these types of plans because it feels very anti-agile. I think it really comes down to your program though, and really your preference. But this slide is one that we're customizing, and if it's helpful, I'm happy to make it available, for those who might be interested. I'll send you a copy. It's easily done in a PPT. Of course, it can be replicated in Excel as well. So that really does it for us, guys. A really quick video, 15-minute video here to just talk a little bit about weekly status readouts, weekly status reports. I hope it was helpful. If it was helpful, would love to hear your thoughts on whether or not you could use this. I'd be happy to send it across. Just comment into the video, please, and I will email you guys a workable version that you can customize for yourself. And if you didn't think that this was helpful, we're very open to feedback as well. So please also drop us a comment and let us know why it's not helpful, or let us know what you're using in place, because we're always keen to learn new things ourselves. Thanks for listening. See you next time.